Welcome in to Shoot the Gap, the IDP podcast for the Fantasy and Frames Football Network. I'm your host, Nate Markham. It's Thursday, May 12th. This is episode 3, and we finally have the 4 horsemen complete. With me, as always, Arn Anderson, Foley Blanchard, Ole Anderson, and I'm not going to be a perfect player, so I'll just let you guys choose your character. You can bounce in, and you can pick which one. But guys, it's the 4 of us. Let's go round the frames. Jorge, how you doing?
I'm amped up, man. We finally got the 4 of us together. Missed Mike in week 1. We had Hollywood out last week, but now we're together. We're going to talk some IDP. This is what we were all excited for when we first signed on for all this. So I'm ready to get this thing going.
And as mentioned, Mike Wohlert, how are you, my friend?
A little tired. I wouldn't say jet lagged since I stayed on the East Coast, but I'm good. If my voice is a little out of it, I apologize. A couple of nights of talking, more so than I expected, but ready to roll.
Well, for this episode, you can just do sign language the entire time to tell us your thoughts and opinions.
That would be impressive if you were able to do that.
Would be. Did you just elbow? I don't know. Yeah. I don't know what the
was that the Dusty Rhodes elbow or
that's
the Rock. Oh wow.
Okay. Yes, the people's elbow.
People's elbow.
Come on, Jorge. You're supposed to be the
the
wrestling guy.
I know.
And of course, Mr. Hollywood himself. Hollywood Titan. Hey, buddy. How you doing?
What's going on, guys? So excited that Mike's here. By the way, if you hear the words smooth jazz, I'm talking about Mike. I just got to put that out there. I know he hates that, but...
I don't hate it.
He loves it. It's okay. We don't have any nicknames for me and Jorge. We'll work on that. We'll get some.
You got to earn your nicknames. You got to earn your nicknames. They got to come organically.
That's right.
Yeah, we are opposed to people that just give their own nicknames to themselves. Correct? I mean, is that not the most ridiculous thing ever?
Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous.
Okay, good. Just making sure. From now on, you guys will call me Dragon, and we will.
Can I be Gator?
Yes, you should be.
That's awesome.
God, the other guys' references, we could pretty much make an entire.
Seriously, we're continuing it on from last week.
There is a continuing theme.
All right, if this is going to be the case, dude, I'm aiming for the bushes.
That used to be one of my fantasy football team names. Year in and year out, even for the bushes, team in for the bushes. It had nothing to do with fantasy football, but it was hilarious.
Oh well. A quick side note. A buddy of mine, who I met at one of the places I worked with, we were on the 13th floor we worked in the 13th floor of a building in Cleveland, and anytime something would go wrong, we just looked at each other and went, aim for the bushes.
Definitely underrated. Underrated. And that kind of goes along with this episode. I got to say, we're going to talk about last week. Of course, we're talking about draft fallout, landing spots for players from an IDP standpoint. And last week we covered the defensive line. And I got to tell you, 48 of them bad boys there were drafted. And this segment about the linebackers, half as many, 23 selected. And speaking of underrated, I think some of the linebackers as a whole are definitely underrated. Let's just jump right in. We'll go kind of round by round. The first round, Green Bay's on the board. Show of hands. Who expected them to take Quay Walker? You liar.
Put my hand down.
Okay. If I said they're going to take a linebacker, would you still have said Quay Walker?
No,
of course not. But that's okay. So, Mike, I think we're in agreement. Quay Walker's a great player, but is it a great landing spot considering, shout out to John Macri over at PFF. He set out a usage chart of linebackers per down, and he showed that really Green Bay pretty much utilizes one linebacker more than anybody. What do we think of the landing spot for Walker?
Well, I honestly kind of like it. He's a good tackler, good run defender. I think he was actually one of the better coverage guys on that Georgia defense. So I don't think he got any interceptions, but the recordings out of minicamp showed they got an interception. So now everybody's going crazy. He's the LB1 now. But I digress, of course. But yeah, the Packers using traditionally more one linebacker sets. But I don't think they've had a linebacker who has had the traits and has been athletically gifted as someone like Quay Walker. And in some instances, he's been called a Devondre Campbell clone 2.0. And when you have two guys that are very similar play, the defensive coordinator, his name escapes me for the moment. I don't like believing coach speak, but when I think it fits my narrative, I love coach speak, and this one's fitting my narrative. So he's like, yeah, we're going to use both of these guys on the field. They're both very quick. They're smooth. They're clones of each other. So for Walker, I don't mind the landing spot. Chris Barnes is a guy. Also, at the same time, again, with like redraft, I'm still trying not to, at least for like 2022, I'm trying not to overvalue these rookies, but it's like Groundhog Day. You forget about it. You're like, all right, I love all these guys again. And I'm trying to temper expectations, but I think Quay Walker could be, if he shows out in training camp, in OTAs, rookie camp, training camp, and in the preseason, you got two athletic linebackers who can complement each other, who can do the same thing. Campbell can go in and maybe drop in coverage, and you can get Walker at the line of scrimmage, and then you can vice versa. You can drop Walker back into coverage, and you can have Campbell rush the passer. So I think if I were to put a projection on snaps for his rookie year, I'm not going to say he's going to be a 3-down guy. He can be close to a full-time guy because I think if he shows that he can play, I don't know why you'd want to keep him on the field or keep him off the field. So, I mean, 70% of the snaps I don't think is out of the range of outcomes.
No, and that's Walker. When you mentioned Joe Barry coming over, and that's what really is probably going to be the biggest thing to pay attention to is how he utilizes the linebackers. Because just remember, a year ago today, they came into the season with Chris Barnes and Kamal Martin as their starting linebackers. And if you're a Packers fan, then you have to be pretty Hollywood. Let me ask you, how's Kyle loving that as far as comparisons, not having to deal with that when you get to go from those two shit bums to Devondre Campbell and Quay Walker. Yes, sorry, exactly. Shit bums. Didn't mean, no offense, Kamal Martin and or Chris Barnes.
He's actually kind of liking it right now. I think he's liking this pick. Everybody kind of busted Blake Martinez for being a bad linebacker, but really since he left, it's been a revolving door, right?
Be careful what you wish for.
Exactly. The grass is not always greener, as I say, these cliches that we got. But yeah, I mean, from what I've talked to Kyle, and we're about to do a show on Sunday night, we'll dig into it. But just talking with him, he's digging this pick right now for sure.
I do not need to have control of the commander switch, by the way. In case anybody's wondering, as Ryan knows, battling the flu, getting over it, and my mind's still a little swampy, but it's okay. I'll digress. So,
Ryan, you bring up a good question. We may be talking about that like in a few minutes.
Exactly. Stay tuned. The teaser, I guess, is what they call that in the biz. That's a teaser for other people to be watching because Ryan knows it. We're going to get to it. Speaking of that, Devin, first round, second linebacker off the board, goes to the Jags. Devin Lloyd, after they sign Aluakon to a billion-year, $200 quadrillion contract, what do? They go out, make the first pick, another inside linebacker, which I'm not opposed to. What I'm shocked is he was the second linebacker taken, but I think it's one of the better landing spots. You have new defensive coordinator Mike Caldwell coming in. Mike Caldwell from Tampa. There's a linebackers coach. He utilized Devin Lloyd and Levante David extremely well. Jorge, far be it from saying this is the new Devin White, Levante David, but can they hearken some similarities? And then even furthermore, with his, with Caldwell's like ability or desire to blitz the quarterback, do you see maybe Devin Lloyd even blitzing more than what we had anticipated from a different landing spot and being overall?
So let's go back to part of Ryan's questions, and he said, "Does it playing together with Olokun help Devin Lloyd?" And so let's remember where this all goes back to. This all goes back to at the end of the day, fantasy point production. Mm-hmm. And so again, it depends on what your scoring settings are here and what they value in terms of play production versus the other. Like we have here in our fantasy and frame scoring rubric here that you can find that we post basically every other day. Here's the thing. You look back at 2021 with Devin Lloyd, he had 111 total tackles, 60-40 split, 7 sacks, 4 interceptions, 6 passes defense. So you say, hey, Ryan, will they vulture each other's tackles? That could happen, but you know what? When you have a versatile player like Devin Lloyd who can get you those sacks, get you those fantasy points for sacks, get you those interceptions, get you those passes defense, compensation. They're going to compensate one way or the other. You know, you look at his production again last year in Utah. According to PFF, he was the 10th best run defender, 6th best pass rusher, 7th best linebacker in coverage. And I'm not talking about edge rusher. I'm not talking about outside. I'm talking about for an inside linebacker. He was doing all these things, which is amazing. Depending on where you're looking at, he's slated to either be the weak side linebacker, which traditionally plays in coverage, or the inside linebackers, again, ESPN, RLEDs, depending on where you're looking. He had a tackle rate of 15.3%, 9.1%. Over at fantasyframes.com, I put out an article looking at these linebackers. And when I'm looking at tackle rates, granted, I'm not going to say that he is the equivalent of these players in the pros, but we're talking about the Wagners. We're talking about who else did I put it here? We have the Bobby Wagners. We have,
I think you went down to CJ Mosley,
Devondre Campbell. I mean, these guys are, that's the type of production that you potentially are getting with Devin Lloyd. I'm not worried about him and the tackle volume eating each other up with Olokun.
So collectively between the four, is Devin Lloyd, you're on the clock at the 101 for an IDP draft. I guess we'll say rookie draft. Is he the 101 for everybody? Mike?
As much as I like linebackers, it's really a toss-up, I think, between Lloyd and Hutchinson, just because Hutchinson is one of a few who I think at a premium position, I kind of am going to trust my, not evaluation, but I'm going to trust what I've seen on some of the linebackers that are going a little later and maybe take my chances. If you need linebackers more than an edge rusher, then yes. So like if you're just, your linebacker group for whatever reason is either old or just you don't like it, yes, Lloyd. But I think for me, it's going to be a toss up for 101 with Hutch and Lloyd as the 101 in rookie draft. So I think it kind of depends on your need. And you just kind of go from there, kind of judge how your league drafts. So, I mean, if your league just scoops up edge rushers, then I'd probably go Hutchinson. But if they gobble up the linebackers, then, maybe go linebacker. But it's really, like I said, it's really a toss up. Kind of depends on what you need. With Lloyd, again, you project him as a 3-down guy. You want to project him as a 3-down guy, but we've been bit in the past by a lot of these people, by a lot of these teams, especially the last couple of days or the last couple of seasons. They've been really good landing spots, but for whatever reason, they're not getting on the field. So definitely has the skill set. Rookie draft, obviously. Dynasty, yes, he's going to be a top guy. Redraft, I'm still favoring some of the veterans a little bit over some of the rookies in 22.
And we'll talk about one of the reasons why maybe Devin Lloyd could lose some snaps with maybe another pick later on. Jorge Hollywood, I think we're in agreement. It's based on need. Devin Lloyd clearly could be, maybe should be, but not should be. Could be the 101. And like we talked about the defensive linemen's, their evaluation. There's a lot of great linebackers, especially later on, like you mentioned, Mike. And as we get into the second round, the first linebacker off the board, I think the landing spot's interesting because Troy Anderson's evaluation was was wonderful. I mean, and you just want him to land somewhere where he can get, immediate snap share, get some good playing time. And he goes to Atlanta. We talked about Louis Kahn being gone. Hollywood, they bring in your boy Rashaan Evans. Michael Walker's still there. Hollywood, how do you see this path to snaps kind of evolving? And also, do we think the rumors are there to unload Deion Jones at whatsoever, because he's a free agent and they would like to get the money off the books, but there's not really much of a chance that they actually find a taker for him, I'm guessing, based on the salary.
Right. And I mean, so many things going through my brain right now. Atlanta. Yeah, I'm sure they want to unload Jones, of course, because of the salary, maybe aging a little bit. They brought in Rashaan Evans, familiarity, right, with Dean Pease and Arthur Smith, from their time in Tennessee. Anderson, I think the opportunity's there because, Jones, they want to get rid of him, right? I mean, not because he's no good, just because of the salary. Evans, this is kind of a second chance deal here. So, with those two things, Anderson not costing them anything and is probably as good as either one of them. Close. I think it's a win-win for them and Anderson. I think the opportunity there for him, and I think it's more Evans-based than it is Deion Jones. If Evans don't produce, Anderson's going to be beating the door down, I think, real quick. So, and I could see a scenario where maybe all three of them are there in some type of rotation role or whatever you want to say. But if I'm looking at those three, it's definitely Anderson is the guy. Where you can get him in drafts, what it's going to cost you, and what he can do, his potential, right? So I like that a lot.
Actually, I was kind of doing some searching around, and something kind of interesting popped up. The Falcons signed Nick Kwiatkowski.
Oh,
they
wow.
did?
Yeah.
Last I heard, he was visiting the Raiders, so wow.
Yeah, they signed him to a 1-year deal.
See, I've got a soft spot for him too.
So now you've got you got Jones, Evans, Walker, and Anderson. So I don't. Yeah. So it's like.
So that kind of muddies the waters a little bit for sure.
It does. I mean, if anything, definitely Trey Anderson is a dynasty stash. Get him on your taxi squad if you have to. Right. I'd say he's too versatile, but that goes without saying. The dude played quarterback, running back, safety, now linebacker. So he's an athlete first and foremost. We know that.
Oh. Well, when drafting rookies, it's not always about what can you do for me immediately right now,
right?
Because let's face it, and we've all been there. We've all done this. We're impatient as hell, right? With rookies, we want them to be the next Micah Parsons. We want them to just come out the gate and just bust everybody's ass, right? Reality is that's not going to happen with everybody.
Yeah, it's not happening.
Yeah, sometimes patience is your best virtue, right? So, if I can get Anderson and stash him on my bench for a year and not have to worry about him, I'm doing that. Especially at probably where you're drafting him right now. I know I've started asking for rookie drafts, and I've got my spreadsheet going on. With the 2 or 3 drafts that I've got in the last 2 or 3 days, he's going 4th, 5th round. You can get him there and stash him on your taxi squad. That's straight up stealing, in my opinion, because next year that's like an extra draft pick because that's what I'm shooting for.
Yeah, and this, these second day,
that's a good spot.
The second day picks, we forget. We want to think the immediate draft capital, like you think with wide receivers and running backs on the offensive side. That first round draft capital just means instantaneous. But if we go back to as far as like 2017, 2018, we look at some of these second, third round guys that have been drafted. We see the names like Darius Leonard, Fred Warner, Jerome Baker. I say Zach Cunningham. Maybe that's tongue in cheek, but he had productive years, of course, IDP wise. Bobby Okereke. The list can kind of go on in terms of Logan Wilson and Nick Bolton. If we're going to just throw out there, these are the guys that really might not have to make an immediate impact day one, but people, I think that you'll get the most value here. And I think the third round, which we're going to, for me at least, was the biggest list of the who I would, if I had to draft just a round, I might just draft the third round linebackers and be comfortable. The first one taken from Minnesota, Hollywood, come back to you, is Brian Asamoah. And Minnesota, for me, a little shocking to take a linebacker there, especially considering they just signed Jordan Hicks. But between Hicks and Kendricks, the thing is they're both free agents in 2024. So maybe more of a taxi, like you just alluded to. Do you think there's any chance, barring injury, that he sees any snaps this year?
Yeah, I think there's a real good chance. I mean, of course, like you said, Hendricks and Hicks are going to be the two guys inside. They drafted Chaz Surratt. They drafted Troy Dye over the past couple of years, Tuff Borland. They got Ryan Connolly. With them drafting Asamoah, that kind of tells me a little bit that either A, those guys are not coming along like they thought, or B, they think a lot of Asamoah, right?
Right.
I always look for not necessarily the guys that are going to be starting linebackers 1 and 2, but that third linebacker spot a lot of times can be very, very valuable for a number of reasons. A lot of teams like to use a rotation, right? B, like you alluded to, what if there's an injury? If there's a pretty significant injury, then I think if Asamoah, if he can get in there and get the playbook up and do what they want him to, I think the opportunity is there for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess over under Jorge, Mike, not to ever not win.
We lost him. We lost him right when he was asking me the most pertinent question.
Who was that?
You
broke up
for a second.
Oh, I broke. Oh man, I think I see. Am I back?
Yep.
You are, but we totally missed the question that you were about to ask.
Good news, I didn't ask the question yet.
Nice.
I said I didn't want to wish it into existence, but what's the over-under for games missed between Kendricks and Hicks this year with 4 games combined? Would you take the over or the under, Jorge?
I'll take the under. Don't quote me, but I never associated either of these guys with having huge injury issues. In fact, I thought they were kind of some of the most durable linebackers you could find out there.
I'd take the under. Hicks battled some injuries kind of in the early going with Philly. I think 15 his rookie year he missed like half the season, and then I think his third year he missed not all of the season, but probably missed 60-70%. I think he only played 7 or 8 games. But yeah, the past 3 seasons he's been pretty durable, playing 3 full seasons. So and Kendricks just might miss 1. I think he missed a few last year. So yeah, I'd probably put it at about 3, a little under the 3 games or even just a push.
Yeah, and that's the one thing I'll say is totally unfair is I do get like kind of persuade into thinking a person's not injury
prone.
But I do look back at that and I thought, Hicks has missed time, but you're right. You have to go back 4 years till he missed time. Kendricks, on the other hand, yes, a couple games here, 2020 missed 5 or 6 games. He's played 1 full season, but not enough. So again, I want to take that question back out. I don't want to wish that upon Minnesota or anything. Maybe Brian Asamoah does, but I doubt it.
I hope not. He's their teammate.
Yeah. Well, some people like are selfish.
Yeah, well, he's got to get that contract. You know what I mean? Yeah. No.
Exactly. Well, I was speaking of teammates, Devin Lloyd's teammate, Mike. I handed this one specifically to you because if I'm not mistaken, I have seen that you pre-draft
Mm-hmm.
were extremely high on Chad Muma.
Mm-hmm.
I was right there
Mm-hmm.
with you. I mean, he led the FBS in tackles last
Mm-hmm.
year. You know, will he see the field enough to show what he can do? I mean, I love the player. I don't know if I love the landing spot.
So when it first happened, if you harken back to Step Brothers, when Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly were fighting in the front yard, and Ferrell, I think, threw a bike. They knocked each other out, and Mary Steenburgen just is in there with a hose and is like, "What the effing f?"
Yep.
So that's kind of what I was like, and I stewed, and I was angry because I had him as my LB1 overall for rookies, and I just didn't understand it. So as I look, I don't think Jacksonville is going to necessarily like go back to the Stone Age and play 3 linebackers. But I think he can. I think he can see some time on the field. Is he going to see 80% of the snaps? Probably not. I could see him maybe on for 50 to 60 at the outset. I could see him playing kind of that hybrid linebacker safety.
Mm-hmm.
He can play the box. He can cover wide receivers. I think he can cover tight ends. I think he can hang with tight ends. I think he can hang with the running backs out of the backfield. I think he can play in those sub packages kind of around Lloyd and Oluokun, because Oluokun is not good. I mean, for IDP he is, because he gets a lot of tackles, but tackles don't make you a good player, and he's doesn't do a whole lot very well. So I think they can use Muma around the line of scrimmage in the box to kind of cover up Oluokun's deficiencies. I mean, it's a passing game, so I think he can do a lot of those things in the backfield. Like I said, I think he can cover the tight ends. As far as redraft, I'm probably, if I'm 2022 redraft, I probably am not drafting him. He probably won't go drafted. So I'm kind of targeting, I'd put him on like a watch list for a waiver wire, but I'm absolutely going to draft him in my rookie draft and stash him. Because I think he can be the play caller. He called the plays in the Senior Bowl. He knows how to do it. He's a smart guy, and I think within the next few years he can play into a 3-down role, wear the dot, and be the play caller and the captain of the defense. I could see Jacksonville maybe realizing they made a mistake on the contract with Oluokun and maybe just try to see if they can cut bait at some point. But I am absolutely going to take a discount on Chad Muma in my drafts and take him late. So I still like him. I'm over the landing spot because I think he can develop into that play caller. And I think he can. I think he can do all those things that are called upon him. That he can kind of help neutralize what the NFL is doing.
Yeah, and I'm trying to find it now, scrambling. So if anybody's listening, watching that wants to even do a little bit more work, I do remember hearing that they have some type of out with Oluokun in 2024.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to check Spot Track and go on, but I have a job to do, which is keep this train a rolling. And we go from disappointment of Chad Muma to Jorge. I'm going to say some optimism in Houston, in that, Christian Harris at Alabama, that athleticism that he possesses could fit very well into a Lovie Smith cover 2 scheme, which they are using less, by the way. You'll notice that they're shying away a little bit more from cover 2, but that's still their bread and butter if you want to. Do you think that there's a path? Again, this question of, is there a path to snaps? Because in redraft, that's obviously the number one question. Number 2 is, should he have a hyphen in his name if he wants to be a starting linebacker? Considering everybody else they have there seems to have the law office of so-and-so. But what do you think, Jorge? Christian Harris, giving you a little tingle at all, or are you passing up? You don't have to
Sure.
look at me like that. You know
Sure,
what I mean.
could. Yeah, he's giving me a tingle. Yeah, that's right. So as we were all talking, Nate, you and I, we have a IDP only dynasty rookie draft tomorrow, and I literally in the past like 5 minutes have done like 3 mocks, and I grab him every time in the second round. And Christian Harris is the guy. Currently, he's basically behind Christian Kirksey, the incumbent veteran, who again. Not the greatest linebacker, but great for tackles. You look at Christian Harris, though, out of Alabama. In the SEC as a whole, he was the 8th best run defender. He had the 9th best run stopping percentage. Here's the best part about Christian Harris: he had the 3rd lowest missed tackle percentage. So this guy hits hard, does not miss. Literally, and I put this in the article that you can find over at fantasyandframes.com today. He just needs to get on the field. And the second he's on the field, he is going to be hard to take off, if not at all, to take off the field. But again, it's just getting past the inefficiencies of Christian Kirksey, whether or not he's able to do that during training camp or not. If he is declared the starter day one, he is somebody that I'm probably going to be taking definitely in my rookie drafts, obviously, as I was stating earlier. But for redraft, I would be comfortable with him as my 4th linebacker if I had the bench space for it, and I did have a couple LB spots there on my starting roster, just to hang on to him. At the very least, if I didn't draft him, in certain apps where you can like tag a player and like watch their activities to see if they're drafted, he would be somebody I'd be tagging just to keep an eye on to see where he was during the season.
Nice. Did you see Ryan did the work for us, and then Sean confirmed it that he does have an out 2024 at 2 years, 30 million with 4.1 dead cap space. You got to believe that is something they have to consider, and so I mean, it not going to take long, and exactly like Kyle's saying, you do. I think that hopefully other people aren't listening to when you guys describe Muma, and then you get him and he's taxied for a year at 2 with whatever is free picks, like Hollywood said, and then all of a sudden you have a legitimate. I don't want to put him in LB1 category yet, but I think that's the range of outcomes for sure.
Well, see, here's the thing with Muma, you're getting kind of that. Logan Wilson effect, right? So I think that's kind of tied to him a little bit. But the fact is, they drafted Devin Lloyd in the 1st round. He's going to get to play.
Right.
I don't care about Olukon affecting him. Now, my question is, does he play inside next to Olukon? Do they maybe kick him out a little bit and let him be a pass rusher? Because he does have that ability, and I'm talking about Lloyd here. With Muma, maybe he's a little bit more secondary. So you're going to have some patience with him, right? Olukon, I think Lloyd are going to be your 2 guys. Depending on what they want to do with Lloyd, I could see in some situations if they want to rush Lloyd off the edge, then maybe Muma comes in. If he's, if we're thinking all things equal with what their potential is, I could kind of see that.
Just use him like as an in-the-box safety.
Right. And with Olukun having an out, or Jacksonville having an out, should I say.
Right, yeah.
I'm not hating it. Maybe it's Olukun and Lloyd right now, but it could be Lloyd and Muma for the foreseeable future if Olukun doesn't live up to expectations or money-wise gets in the way. So,
do you really think you'd see Lloyd get moved out to an edge? I mean, you already have Josh Allen, you have Trayvon Walker there, the #1 overall pick. I mean,
no, I don't see him playing edge, but they'll play.
Well, see, I didn't think either, Mike. But this was my thought process. Not to interrupt. I was like, okay, they drafted Walker. He's going to be the outside guy to Josh Allen, right? That's the initial thought. That's what hit me. They draft Lloyd, and I'm like, okay, he's probably going to play inside. They draft Muma. And then I got to thinking, and I think I actually talked to Kyle about this a little bit, and I was like, Walker is kind of versatile. I can see them kicking him inside sometimes. And if they do, what do? You bring Lloyd to the outside. So you're going to have Josh Allen, who's already on the outside. Maybe you kick Walker some inside, and when you do, you've got Devin Lloyd on the outside. They've got some pieces that are kind of versatile that they can play with, some chess pieces here. So I don't think it's a set in stone thing, but they have options, right? And I think that's what's intriguing is when you have options that you can play with, that changes the game. When you're kind of set in stone on what you're doing, that kind of screws you up, right? Because you have to do this or you have to do that.
Yep. And I don't think going into the draft, they were looking 4 years down the road thinking, all right, well, we have this opt-out for Aluakin. We can take Trayvon Walker because he has the ability to move inside. But I think it was happenstance that it worked that way because he does have that ability to be able to move inside. Maybe it not direct straight nose.
Right.
But Fotokasi and by that point, they're going to be
Adam
able to move
Goddess
on.
and those guys. Yeah, I get what you're saying.
I mean, I can see Lloyd. What I'd almost like to do with him is even just rush him for the inside, put him over Trayvon Walker, if you kick him on inside, and rush him from the inside. But what I think what the Cowboys did with Parsons is, I think it's a copycat lead, so it certainly is possible. But I'd put Lloyd and let him go nuts on the inside and come over those guys. Let the nose tackles and the defensive tackles plug those gaps and create those holes, and just let Lloyd just hit the gap, hit the hole, and get to the quarterback. So I could see that for sure. He's gonna get some pass rush snaps. I think he only had, looking at some of his snap breakdowns, I think total he only had out of his. He played 25% of the snaps on the edge, I think, last season, if I recall correctly. If I'm looking at my math, and my math is not very good. But I think he had a little over 100 snaps on like as an edge on the right and the left. So he mostly played left inside, right inside. It's basically interchangeable now. Right weak. I'm trying not to use like weak side, strong side because it kind of doesn't exist anymore. They're just interchangeable right or left. But I would definitely use Lloyd's off snap burst to just rush him on the inside and just take the offensive line just by storm and completely off guard.
Yeah, if you take away Devin Lloyd's like special teams work, which he had so many snaps over the course of the season and field goal blocking, and we saw that evidence on a lot of the tapes that he's shown, but he played 702 snaps in the box. Of those, 129 were basically at edge, just off tackle outside, right and left consistently. And like we said earlier, Mike Caldwell, I was saying, is Aluakin and Devin Lloyd, maybe your Devin White, Levante David, but maybe in a couple of years it might be Chad Muma and Devin Lloyd. The good news is if you're a Jacksonville fan, you have to be excited just overall about the progress the defense is making and the position and the direction they're going. And
take the discount on Muma and run.
Exactly.
Yes.
I would take the discount and run and kind of be happy with it.
Jorge, what about the discount that Philadelphia got with Nakobe Dean?
I mean, I'm not going to spend too much time on Dean. I'm not going to tell you that Aaron Rodgers is good. I think we all know that. And I think, for those who followed college football in Georgia, Nakobe Dean, according to Pro Football Focus, was rated as the third best run defender in the SEC and of all the NCAA amongst linebackers. He was the number one rated linebacker when rushing. He has the fourth best winning percentage amongst linebackers. He has a pressure rate of 4.3%, which, if you compare that to NFL standards, that's like Chandler Jones, Harold Landry territory. And this is your inside linebacker. The ultimate question here is, obviously he's, for me, my first or second linebacker in rookie drafts. You can make the case for Lloyd or Dean, in my opinion, and you can't go wrong either way. For redraft, here's the thing. The Eagles this year have done such a great job in assembling their linebacking core. It's kind of like an embarrassment of riches here with Hassan Reddick. You got Nazir White. You got TJ Edwards coming back. You still have Davion Taylor from last year, who was very productive until he got hurt down the stretch of the season. So these linebackers, there's not a pressing need to put Dean in the starting lineup, which is what would make me not want to draft him in redraft this year. But for Dynasty, oh, absolutely. He's one of your first linebackers off the board. Just very good all-around player.
Yeah. Quick thing on Dean. Two things that just absolutely killed his draft stock. Size, a little undersized, right?
Mm-hmm.
For whatever reason, I don't care how good you are, if you don't have that size, you kind of get knocked for it, right? The second thing, and I think maybe the bigger thing, was he had this injury and he chose not to have it corrected.
Yeah, no surgery.
No surgery, yeah.
Yeah, he decided not to do that. So
that was a pec injury,
that
right?
kind of hurt him a little bit.
Yeah, pec shoulder.
Yeah, so with that, I if he has the correct size and he's healthy, he's probably a top 15 pick with what he's done. It's just weird how the NFL works. I get the size thing, but
I don't think it was the size. I think it was more the
right?
injury. I think it was more the injury because
it was more the injury.
It was more the injury because post all of the playoff and everything, I mean, Dean was mocked pretty consistently as a first round pick.
Right.
Some had 15, some had 10, but I think he's probably going to be this year's JOK. Because he got the knock of being a little undersized and maybe didn't have a defined role, but I think there was some concern, I think, about a knee. And when you watched him play, you're like, I don't see what the problem is here. So I think that's kind of what's happening.
With him is JOK is more of an outside guy. Dean's more of an inside guy. But I get your comparison. I mean, I get it. And I'm with you. I think it was more of the injury that hurt his than the actual size, but those were the two concerns overall.
Just a lot of galaxy braining.
And I've not seen why he chose not to have the surgery. I've not seen anything on that, so I'm not exactly sure what
someone had to be in his ear, and they said, if you have the surgery, you're guaranteed to fall out of the first 2 or 3 rounds. Maybe if you don't, maybe someone will see past it. But it was the pec and shoulder. He had meniscus injury. I don't know how severe that was, and an ankle injury. All of those things compounding. And I mean, the NFL, when it comes to draft time, you have to be risk adverse. I mean, don't get me wrong. You still want to gamble a little bit, but I think their gamble was, I mean, they hit on a 12 in blackjack with the dealer showing 9 is what they did for the third round in Nakobe Dean.
Right.
I mean, it was a smart move. It was calculated, and they have time to redshirt him because they have time to see Kazir White's on a 1-year deal. TJ Edwards, of course, is still proving what he can do. And they have the defensive line to put so much pressure that
they have time to redshirt him, but I think he kind of plays right away. If he's healthy, I think he plays right away. I really do.
Well, they had to hold him back in minicamp. I mean, he was so amped up last weekend. The general manager Howie Roseman was like, Sirianni's got to rein him in like crazy.
Right.
And one of the big things about Dean is his leadership skills on the field. I know that we're not talking metrics and whatnot about football here, but it's that attitude that gets you respect amongst your peers and amongst your coaches. And he has all those metrics. I mean, he just needs to be good to go. And I think he gets that middle linebacker spot sooner rather than later.
And this is the third round that we've collectively talked about with these last 4 picks. And I mean, every one of them we've basically said has a path, maybe outside of Asamoah. And the one that I think for this year is probably the last on my list of the group that we've talked about is Terrell Bernard, drafted by Buffalo. The way I look at this, Mike, is that, Tremaine Edmonds, the Bills fans have always just not liked him. I don't know what it is. He's always been a punching bag to him. He's set to be a free agent. I mean, should we expect any path to snaps whatsoever? Oh, is Buff the Stuff Bernard? Oh, should we expect any pass to snaps this year out of Bernard?
This year, I'm taking him as a nice taxi squad stash. In my dynasty, in my league. So, I mean, 3rd round pick still has a decent enough draft capital. And I think he's going to contribute as the 3rd linebacker behind Milano and Edmonds. And I think they kind of look at him as a replaceable piece. It's Linebacker is just really weird how they're utilized. It's a completely different position than it was. But I think he's a good nickel backer. I mean, he can rush the passer. He plays bigger also than he is. But the missed tackles, Jesus, 17 or more missed tackles in 2 or 3 seasons at Baylor. So that's a problem. But he had a 14.6% tackle rate, had 270 tackles over 3 seasons. So he definitely needs to clean that up. But like I said, I think he's going to compete at least for the 3rd spot. So, I mean, that's going to probably get him 25, 30% of the snaps. So not expecting too much as a rookie. But I mean, I think he can, I don't see any reason why he can't come in at some point and be a full-time or a 3-down guy if they do decide to move on from Edmonds. Edmonds has just been meh, and he's only 24. He's been in the league forever. I think he came in at 19, which is insane. So, but he's still only 24. So even if he doesn't get picked up by Buffalo, I'm sure someone will give him a chance. But I definitely like Bernard as a taxi squad stash. Buffalo linebackers, if he earns that starting spot, they don't leave the field. So, and it's a relatively decent position for tackles and IDP points.
Yeah, and it is just. I'm confused with why they hate for Edmonds. Again, like I said, I mean, it's 4 straight years of 100+ tackles. He just seems, I don't know. Maybe it's just he's not flashy when he goes about it, and the Buffalo fans want flashy. Hey, someone's going to be able to. He's going to sign a good contract somewhere, and at that point, then it makes sense
he's a good tackler. He had a really horrible year in coverage. He really got exposed in coverage this year. He doesn't really rush the passer. I think he only had 67 pass rush snaps.
Yeah, 5.5 sacks for his career.
And he was average in run defense. So for what they thought he was going to be, he just really hasn't been. So, I mean, like I said, decent tackler, but really, really got exposed in coverage this year.
I think when your rookie season, you come out and you have 19 passes defensed, I think, and 2 interceptions, maybe the bar's set. He set the bar too high for himself. So rookies, if you're listening to this, don't do too good your rookie year, or they will smash you through a table in Buffalo. And I don't have any.
Not in the good way.
Not in a good way. But a good way to segue is to go from someone that might get smashed in the table to a person's question who we don't want to smash through a table. And Ryan's wanting to know about Channing Tindall, who another Georgia Bulldog off the board. That's only, was that 47 in the first 2 rounds for Georgia, I believe, in this draft. And he lands with the team. Good Lord. I mean, but shocking. They won, huh? Isn't that weird how that works? Lands with the Dolphins. Now Hollywood. Here's one thing that I think, at least I've seen, and I'm sure we've all seen, athletic, tremendous athleticism. He's the blitz heavy approach from the Dolphins last year. Do we think that Tindall's a rotational piece? Let's be honest. If you look at the Miami linebacking core, it's a lot of, they want to be, Landon Roberts is this big bruising back. Oh, you can't wait to watch him. He's going to be awesome. And Sam Eguavoen. Oh, what? Nothing. Jerome Baker is Jerome Baker. I'm okay with that. But You think he might be able to crack that starting lineup?
As a rookie, I think it's going to be a little hard for him. Baker's locked in. I think Roberts, so like you said, he's that big bruiser linebacker. And I kind of think he's locked in. You're going to have Jalen Phillips and Andrew Ginkle on the outside. Iguavin's not much. They have Duke Riley. He's not much. So I think Tindall can be that 3rd guy. Is he able to crack the top 2? That's going to be tough for him as a rookie, especially with them only playing basically 2 linebackers. In some situations, they go one inside linebacker, right? So I think they're going to get a little creative and try to find ways to get him on the field. But expecting a whole lot out of him as a rookie, I think you got to kind of pump your brakes on him a little bit. Now, that's not to say don't draft him where you can and get the good value. I just wouldn't overhype him or overvalue or expect his expectations get a good value pick for him. You know, if you can get him 4th round on, and you can stash him on your taxi squads, or if you don't have taxi, if you got deep benches, stash him on your bench, then I think the value's there. But if you're expecting a lot out of him and start reaching for him, I think that's where you're going to screw up.
Yeah, didn't get a ton of exposure at Georgia, more of a rotational piece. But like I said, athletic, pairs well with that blitz-heavy scheme. So when he does get a chance, there's an opportunity for legitimate IDP success, at least from a sack-happy approach, if you want to call it that. And the last linebacker taken in the 3rd round is on a pedestal, ready to go to probably 16 teams in the NFL, immediately start, be an IDP stalwart, and he gets tripped up, kicked in the face, and he lands in Kansas City, which I love for real football. But Mike, he got spagged. What do we think?
This is a nightmare scenario for me with him.
Me too.
This was one of the nightmare scenarios. Because Macri was always, he's like, yeah, dude, Devin Lloyd is going to, I'm putting some of the blame on him because Macri's like, all right, Devin Lloyd is going to Kansas City or Arizona. And I think he said Muma was either going to go to Kansas City or Arizona. And it ended up being Chanel. And nightmare scenario. Because for whatever reason, I don't know. I don't know. You should probably speak to it since you're the Chief. This is what he does. And, you should speak to it since you're the Chiefs guy. I don't know how he's going to utilize him, but, they drafted Bolton last year and, they still have Willie Gay from the year before and they don't have Hitchens anymore. So, you're kind of thinking, all right, well, Bolton has to be no, you don't, who knows? I don't know. I know if I'm in a rookie draft and say I'm in the 3rd or 4th round and Chanel gets drafted, I'm not losing sleep over it.
Oh, you can't.
But if he's there in the 5th or 6th round, I don't think I have a problem with it. Why the hell not? But yeah, it was one of my nightmare landing spots.
It is a nightmare landing spot. It's a nightmare spot for. I've watched Spags. When in St. Louis, and then you see when he goes to the Giants, and he comes to Kansas City, and I'm thinking, okay, I see each one of these pieces. Willie Gay, you know what? That makes sense. He's got versatile, good sideline to sideline speed. Can play a couple different, packages. That should be good. Doesn't see the field. All right, here's Nick Bolton. Oh, Nick Bolton's one of only 5 players in the NFL last year with 100+ tackles and 10+ tackles for a loss. Well, that's got to mean something, right? Nope, doesn't mean shit. It means you just have to assume he's going to get on the field and play every time because downhill. Hollywood, remember last year going in, who was my rookie of the year pick? It was Nick Bolton, and yep. It should be. It should have been. It shouldn't be.
And what have we kind of mentioned already? Undersized guy, kind of got knocked, right?
Yeah.
And the thing with Bolton is yeah, he got the tackle numbers, but I'm sorry, you can't expect that type of tackle efficiency on 60% of the snaps.
You can't. Exactly. And that's why I'm avoiding
Bolton. You can't, but considering what else they have,
well, yeah.
You kind of can, right? I mean, on a normal team, yes, Mike's right. You can expect that, but with what Kansas City has at linebacker, it's kind of an aberration, right?
He's a perfect best ball target.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Great best ball target.
Yeah.
I mean, a fantastic best ball IDP target. But again, I don't know. You can't. For a weekly basis, you almost have to play matchups with him.
And if you look at the AFC West, so the West, whereas it's like, all right, get the Raiders. Well, they've now added obviously more passing to the offense. I think we can assume is pretty safe with Devontae Adams. Jacobs did down the stretch. So, and that exactly what Sean's saying. how when you get a run heavy approach like with Derrick Henry, and you just can't assume. I worry about the Chiefs offense a little bit, and I don't know if that's going to be a positive or a negative for Bolton. I could see the situation in this is that I could see the offense staggering just a little bit. I don't want to wish that, but I could see it. And in turn, teams have a lead and they just want to control the clock and they run a little bit more. And if teams have a more run-heavy approach towards the Chiefs, I see Bolton on the field a little bit more. And maybe that trends up to 75% of the snaps. And an extra 10%, I think, is a safe 100-tackle floor. But I'm projecting.
But if you look at when you look at like the snap game logs, I mean, overall he played 60. But like that middle of the season, you see 43%, 35, 28, 29, 44. Week 14, he was 99% of the snaps. But then week 16, 39%, 44%. It's a little mind-boggling. I mean, I have to believe that Spags knows he has a good football player. Why don't you keep him on the field?
I just that's the enigma. That's what I don't. I hate. Like you said, when he did the death nail of going to Kansas City for the death nail of Leo Chanel goes to Kansas City. Will be the name of this episode, unfortunately.
But is that the death nail, really?
So you know what's going to happen. He's going to play 100% of the snaps this season.
Of course he will.
I could really see him beating out Willie Gay, right? And it being Bolton and Chanel on the inside. I could see that easily. I could see that.
I don't know.
I mean, Chanel did everything right. There's nothing in his game that was lacking at all that I saw last year whatsoever.
Coverage is a little
right.
Coverage was rough. Yeah, he even said, "I got it, bro."
Man, but I mean, when you're comparing him maybe to Gay, I think you got to go Chanel. If he can learn the playbook and get up to speed and do everything that you're supposed to do, I think he's an upgrade over Gay right now. I really do.
Yeah, I mean, top 25 in pressures, PFF second highest graded linebacker, fourth in stops, and he was top 30 in missed tackles. So, you know, everything positive that you'd want to have a linebacker to acclimate to the NFL is there. But this is the wait and see type league, and maybe other people will hear this and they'll back off Chanel, and maybe someone can grab him and just kind of, wait and see. And like with the rest of these linebackers from rounds 4 to 7, they were in a wait and see in their own little green room, because I'm sure none of these guys were actually at the draft. But from rounds 4 to 7, there was still a good mix of linebackers left. You guys give me one in those rounds that you think could have an IDP impact either this year or even maybe someone that you're stashing for Dynasty. Mike, I'll start with you.
I'm going to go Malcolm Rodriguez with Detroit. I mean, Alex Anzalone's only there for another year. They signed him to a 1-year deal. Obviously, Derek Barnes didn't really do a whole lot. So I think he kind of has that Dan Campbell type mold, really kind of a rabid athlete. So I again, another guy that misses tackles. So hopefully that tightens up. But that's kind of who I'm targeting as kind of a late rookie stash. Malcolm Rodriguez.
I like it. Is Derek Barnes going to take a step forward again this year? Or are we just going to all be teased? He was a super tease last year. Kept seeing those weeks. I'm like, ooh, I like it. I get the tingle that Jorge got. And then nothing. Nothing's there. Jorge, who gives you a tingle this year in rounds 4 to 7?
Wow, we're still going.
Okay. Trend. I like to stick with things. Beat a dead horse. Like Spags beats us to death in IDP. I'm gonna do the other guys and tingles in the nether regions constantly.
Okay, so we're gonna keep banging this tingle. Got it. All right. Brandon Smith, linebacker, obviously. Carolina Panthers, one of the best at Penn State in pass coverage. Goes to Carolina. They have a coverage linebacker in Shaq Thompson. That's not going to work out too well. The only way he plays this year and gets starting time here is if Damian Wilson, who recently was arrested for assault and apparently threatened to kill his girlfriend, does not play. They move Shaq over to the middle, Now you got the opportunity for the coverage linebacker to step up. That is the scenario. I don't know how likely of a scenario that is. But for a taxi squad player, for a good coverage linebacker, I think he's a really good option there. You could have there, and you could pay dividends maybe down the road in a few seasons.
Nice. Hollywood, how about yourself?
Yeah, so I was curious to see what your all's answers was here, and gladly nobody took mine. So I'm going to go Darian Beavers, Cincinnati Bengals, in the 6th round. Of course, they got Logan Wilson. They've got Jermaine Pratt. They've got Akeem Davis-Gaither. But I don't know that Gaither is a lock-in. So if Beavers can kind of come in and do his thing, I like him. I like the upside there. I think he's going to be able to compete. And maybe he doesn't do anything this year, but I like what he brings to the table, even as a 4th linebacker. If that's his role, I think there's you see in the NFL now, you got to have multiple linebackers, injuries or schemes or whatever it is. You need 3 or 4 good linebackers, and I think he easily steps into that role and he can be productive. I kind of see that he beats out Akeem Davis-Gaither. So I could see that very easily.
I hate to be that guy.
You're that guy. You're that guy.
No.
I'm done, folks. I'm out.
I said with all due respect. All due respect.
Beavers didn't go to the Bengals.
Are you sure?
He went to the Giants.
Maybe. Oh,
he played for Cincinnati.
Oh,
the Bearcats. But he got. I don't. But your premise is right. Just the team is wrong. But I like your premise because I think even with the Giants, I think he's in a good spot.
Yeah, I completely messed that up.
So your premise is right. I completely agree with who you picked.
So with Martinez, he's the guy.
Tay Crowder is not good.
Can I?
No, he's not. He's not.
Put an extra little wrinkle onto this because I like what I saw out of Micah McFadden going to the Giants. Similar situation. Well, exact same.
That's going to be a crowded room, right?
It's going to be.
It's going to be a crowded room.
I want to see how Martinez comes off of ACL. I think he's going to be fine, but you still want to monitor it. As you mentioned, Tay Crowder, garbage, real life, was serviceable IDP, which just tells me that someone filling into that role could do so.
Yeah, I mean, you got the volume. You got a 3-down roll. So, I mean.
Yeah.
As long as Martinez is healthy, he's the guy.
Correct. Yeah. There's no question.
So it's you're gonna fill in around him is what's gonna happen there in New York.
Yeah. I want to see new defensive coordinator. Wink Martindale's there. Wink Martindale,
which could be very interesting, by the way.
Yeah. So will he bring in Baltimore's blitz heavy approach?
Yeah. Because Beavers was a good pass rusher.
And so is Micah McFadden. He was number 2 in pass rush grade, behind Leo Chenal, of course. He was 3rd in sacks. He was 7th in win rate, actually. So, I mean, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All those things, Lyndon. But at this point, I'm just trying, I have to forecast or predict if they're going to actually bring in Martindale, if he has a spot, because now we have Beavers and Martinez, and you have a crowded room. But that'll be something to watch play out. And guys, that wraps it up. Unless anybody has anybody else they want to talk about, which you guys are more than welcome. You got the platform, but I was worried. We're about the 20-minute mark, and I thought it was going to be a 30-minute show. Nope, we got over the hour.
Nice.
So
we all love our linebackers, but I think like I've said, like we've all said, with what we've seen the last couple of years, linebackers are being utilized completely differently. They're being looked at differently.
Agree.
We haven't, I think Devin Lloyd could be the closest to like a Darius Leonard, but we just need to pump the brakes a little bit. And I don't know whether it was the pandemic or the addition of the playoff team that maybe teams want to rely a little bit more on veterans as opposed to rookies, and they just kind of want to ease them in. But I think I don't want to speak for the other three of you, but as far as redraft, I think we can kind of come to the conclusion that Devin Lloyd is probably going to be, if we were to project, do you agree that he's probably going to be the top rookie IDP scorer?
Yeah, I think so.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. He doesn't mean he might be the
Or
101
linebacker
taken.
at the linebacker position.
Oh,
Not
yeah,
at
overall
linebacker,
IDP
yes.
score at the
Linebacker,
linebacker
yes.
position.
Yes.
I still think he leads scoring out of all positions,
No,
but
way.
I think that you don't think so.
No. Kyle
Who would
Hamilton is going to lock that shit up.
Okay,
That's happening.
So
I
you're
love
just going
that's
to say
gonna
Chuck
happen.
Clark to the wind? You're just going to say he's
No,
going?
no, Chuck Clark's not going anywhere. But you put him and Clark back there at safety.
So this is what we call
what
a
they're
teaser
fixing to
for
do
next
with those two safeties is going to be ugly as hell. I'm telling you, they're fixing to freak people up back there in the secondary.
If you stuck around past the credits, this post-credit scene where we hear brief intro to next week, we're going to discuss the defensive backs, which should not be a very, very long. So,
You jinxed that.
yep, we'll see it for about 2 to 3 hours. But we will wrap up this week. As always, thank you for listening. Subscribe. The other shenanigans to do and say, find my